Boreda, croeso I Cwmbi. Hello and welcome to Wales. Just want to take you on a little journey to the Dolaucothi gold mines, which were mined since the Roman times for gold, and it's in the deep Wales in the Cambrian Mountains. So you can see that we're just travelling across the country now. It's quite a tucked away site, even as far as the Romans were concerned. But you see, even before the Britons invaded, let's try that again. Even before the Romans invaded Britain, the Romans had a decent idea of sort of economics and the tribal culture that was going on in Britain, because there was a lot of cross-channel trade even back then. So they knew there was gold there, and they have developed a gold mine in the western, deepest Cambrian mountains in Wales. I want to start this tour of Dolaucothi by looking at the location, the setting of it. It's on a sort of very small valley. The Welsh word for it might be a cwm, or in West Country, where I'm from, they tend to call it a cwm, C-O-M-B-E. Okay, it's set into the hillside where a natural stream would come down to join the river further down to the west of the Dolaucothi gold mines, in a place where in the modern days it's called Cwm Sant. Literally 5 saints in Welsh. Okay, if you look at the north eastern side of the map, the top right corner, you see that there's a higher bit of land there that juts out, literally pointing at the site of activity in the middle of this map. Now that's kind of the hillside, and on that hillside you might see the aqueduct which runs from the top right down to the middle. You mustn't think that Roman industrial mining is just people with pickaxes. It's far more sophisticated than that, and whilst Romans are famed for using aqueducts to provide water supply to their towns and cities, in this case it's for an industrial purpose that they provide an aqueduct into the site. If you look at this picture now, you should be able to see this is looking across like little dip where that little stream would have gone towards the hill where the aqueduct is, and you can see there's one or two lines horizontally along the hill where the aqueduct would have been, because basically the Romans didn't necessarily build aqueducts as we would imagine, like 2 or 3 tiers with arches, not that sort of aqueduct, but essentially these are more like water channels that comes from a reservoir higher up, and it flows through these channels which are lined by clay. I think clay, maybe lead, but certainly clay. It's landscaped in a way that it would hold water until it arrives at a tank higher up in the site. And we're now going to see what the water is used for. The Romans started developing this site because they knew there were gold streams on the ground, and at first they can visually see perhaps where the gold veins are, and started mining from the top. This is what we call Opencast Mining. You just start digging into the hillside and hoping that there'll be some gold that are there in amongst all the things that happens to be underground. Over time it then became less easy to find where these gold places are just by looking, so they had to make it easier for themselves to get perhaps the top layer of the soil off, so they can see what lurks beneath and whether there might be gold there. So now the job or the process of looking for gold in an area is called prospecting. Literally to look out for, to look forward for something. You may have met Prospector Pete or Stinky Pete in Toy Story, right? He was a prospector. He goes around and look and see where the valuable minerals are. Anyway, he wasn't working in Roman times. In Roman times, the purpose of these tanks that we've been learning about earlier is to wash off the topsoil and to see where the gold veins on the ground are. And the Romans started doing that mostly after what they can find easily has been exhausted. So gradually Romans found more gold veins around by the process of washing these topsoils off and seeing where the gold might be. And so they started working on those areas where those newly discovered gold veins are, and they started doing more opencast mining around those areas. The process of using water to wash away topsoil to find gold, by the way, is called hushing. 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 Once the Romans were more sure where the gold veins are, and they had already collected most of the gold that is easily accessible, they started digging channels underground. Now these tunnels, if you like, are called adits, A-D-I-T, adit. And then adits tend to have an entrance at one end and an exit on the other end. This is important. It doesn't always start off like this, but it tends to go like this. And it's good in a sense because it provides some sort of ventilation. And we know that in mines, toxic gases are quite often a source of danger. There's a lower adit and a upper adit in Dolaucothi, and you can see from the marks on the floor, on the walls, actually there's quite a pattern to it. We suspect Romans used pickaxe to hack away the solid rock there in their search for gold. So what you see are marks of pickaxes on the rock in order to make the tunnel. There's a good thing about them being downhill. If they're created downhill, is that water can flow through them as well, which is often quite useful to wash off anything that's been found in the adits. Now, it's one thing to hack through a tunnel, but it's another thing once you identify where the gold bits are to actually try and get it out. The Romans didn't just use pickaxes to mine away the gold and the other bits that they need to get through to the gold vein. They also use something called heat setting. Now, heat setting is basically where I think it's fire setting rather than heat setting. That's basically where you put a bit of fire, or you put something that burns next to where the gold deposits are, and you essentially set fire to the flammable stuff next to the bit where the gold is, and that sort of heat cool method should lead to the rock becoming looser. And it's the same process as weathering, if you've done that in geography, except that this is a man-made process to accelerate that. So fire setting helps to get those rocks out. Now this is where the ventilation becomes quite important, because actually, you don't want to be burning something that's in such an enclosed space. It isn't that great. So the Romans were aware of that, and they made sure that the adits that they built had a top and a bottom and allows for ventilation. In modern day, of course, you'd be relying on pumps and air pumps and sort of engine things to make sure it's ventilated. The Romans could only rely on circulation of wind. I don't think they necessarily have any fans around. Okay, now once you've got that gold deposit out, whether by fire setting or by pickaxe or by both, you still get quite a rough bit of rock with some gold around perhaps, and you might need to make sure that you just chip out the gold. Now this is where the water wheel comes in. The water wheel is actually not totally related to the reservoirs that we've met before, because the reservoirs are there to wash away the topsoil. Here the water mill is used to power something, and what it's quite likely to power is to power some sort of hammer to chip out the stone and to make sure that all you've got then is the gold. So you would probably put a sort of rock as a sort of platform. A table won't do because it'll probably be just smashed. You wouldn't just want a wooden table, you would want some quite solid rock, and then you would have a sort of hammer device that is linked to the water wheel so that it can sort of hammer down, and you go pop, 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 pop. As the wheel turns, the hammer bashes down. Now, there is a rock in Dolaucothi. Originally, when locals found it, they didn't quite know what it was. They thought it was related to some sort of backstories about saints, and it isn't. All the funny patterns that they've seen is simply where all the work has taken place, all the work to make sure the gold comes out of the ore. So yeah, it looks quite unremarkable when you see it in the picture, but genuinely it's just a platform for the gold mining work to happen, and it's just awesome. So it's clearly a very industrial site there. What we haven't necessarily found within the area is any trace of where the workers might be. Now we can see on the map there that down from the cramped site, when I say cramped I mean it's hemmed in by hills. Okay, so downstream from the cramped site is a plain bit of land where the stream comes into a larger river. Now this is where the site of the Roman barracks was, and there are several reasons why there might be a Roman fort here. It might just be to make sure it can respond to any local disturbances and control the local population, but it might also be to guard something that is considered quite strategic, or in some cases it might even to guard the working population. A mine like this is likely to require a sizable workforce, but there's no evidence of any settlement around here other than the fort, and the fort couldn't have housed all the workers of the mines, which are likely to be slaves. So that's something to be discovered, and perhaps you might be interested to pick up an axe and to try and look for this Roman settlement. The people who work in the mines tend to be slaves, and arguably these aren't the worst mines in Roman times to work in. Romans did have deep mines, and slaves are often living in these mines when they're not working, and they often not see daylight for a long time. Remember, slaves are disposable in Roman times, and if you've been bought as a Roman slave and sent to work in a deep mine, you're not likely to buy a very expensive slave for that, because the working condition is poor, and your chances of survival is not great. So you're more likely to buy someone who's dispensable than someone who's worth quite a bit of money. All this sounds quite cruel, but it's what the Romans are used to, unfortunately, and thankfully it's not something that we recognise very easily in modern day. Now the site was abandoned after the Romans left, but a mining activity did resume here at times later, and in fact Dolaucothi was worked until quite recently. When I say recently, not in the last 10 years, but certainly recent in terms of the long history that it's had. So if you're ever near the area in Carmarthenshire or in the Lampeter area, then do make a visit. And if you're interested to learn more about the water wheel, there's a great video by the head tour guide of the Dolaucothi mines as well, which I'll try and put a link below so you can see. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah.